Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming all this way to Washington, D.C. I'm extremely excited to be able to welcome everybody, and I'm really excited for what we're going to be able to accomplish on this endeavor that we are on. I was thinking about it as I was coming here. Okay, I didn't do that. I was thinking as I was coming here about how a lot of times women get to stand up and say, I want peace on earth. And it occurred to me that this is what peace on earth looks like, is it's the people standing up and demanding peace. And with that, if Ben Adams would come up and do the invocation.
All right, thank you. I know there might be a lot of faith in this room. I pray to the God of Abraham, and so I will be directing my prayer in that direction. Let us pray. Dear God, thank you so much for all the people that are here. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for the boldness that each one of the members that is in this room has had to have to stand up. I pray that you would strengthen us over the next 48 hours especially, give us strength and boldness to speak truth. And for all you do, we will give you all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, we have a serving line out in the lobby out here, so Mary, any particular order or just?
No, just finish your salad.
Okay. As soon as you finish your salad? Yep, as soon as you finish your salad, please enter the buffet line and dish up your plate, and then as you come back in and everybody's seated, we'll move on from there. Thank you. Everybody, please can I have your attention for just a quick moment while you're finishing your meal. I want to, once again, thank you for coming. I want to recognize Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin from the state of Idaho up here in the front. If we could give her a round of applause. Also, our other keynote speaker tonight, General Don Bolduc from the great state of New Hampshire is here with us tonight. And most importantly, all the veterans and lawmakers that are here in the room with us, thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. Enjoy your meal. I'm going to turn the time over right now to Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, who's here to talk about what our states at the local level can do to help change America's foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for inviting me to join you this evening. A special thank you to Dan and Representative Lindholm from Wyoming for your efforts to put this event together. Wonderful dinner. Thank you to all the veterans who have served so honorably our country. American foreign policy has changed quite a lot over the last couple of centuries. This country has gone from a policy of sustained non-intervention to a series of involvements, intercessions, and occupations around the globe. The first U.S. president, George Washington's farewell address, was quite unambiguous. It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliance with any portion of the foreign world. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address, was equally explicit. Peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. It was our fifth U.S. President, James Monroe, whose name became attached to our nation's formalized policy of non-intervention in other regions of the world. The Monroe Doctrine's first point was that the U.S. would not interfere in the internal affairs of or the wars between the European powers. Sadly, we have abandoned this policy, and this reversal has pushed our country into a series of wars and conflicts over the last century. This has come at a significant cost to our nation in terms of lives and treasure, and it shows no sign of abatement. We seem to have forgotten the wise counsel of Benjamin Franklin when he observed, "There never was a good war or a bad peace." Today, we find ourselves entering the 19th year of the undeclared war in Afghanistan, a war that has resulted in thousands of deaths, tens of thousands of injuries, and that has cost American taxpayers nearly $1 trillion. When we look at the cost of the broader war on terror and the undeclared war in Iraq, the numbers jump to as high as $7 trillion, according to some estimates. Why are we spending trillions of dollars and losing American lives by the thousands to engage in conflicts on foreign soil? Why are we not following the Constitution and actually declaring war if these battles truly necessitate our involvement? Section 8 of our Constitution says the role of Congress is to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. That's the words in our Constitution. Congress must debate and vote before the President commits our military to lethal action and should regularly evaluate and vote on whether to continue ongoing U.S. wars. Congress must reclaim their authority when it comes to the defense of our nation. In Section 10 of the Constitution, it is declared that no state shall engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Again, we see that the power of waging war is a specific power reserved to a specific branch of government. According to the Constitution, this country was not supposed to engage in undeclared wars. What was the purpose of declaring a war? It was more than just a piece of paper. Declaring war not only put the country on notice, but it changed the relationship between the citizens and the governments of the countries involved in the war. Actions that would have been considered piracy during peacetime could become legal acts of war when carried out by privateers who had been issued letters of marque by their respective governments. In his most recent State of the Union address, President Trump reminded us that great nations do not fight endless wars. He went on to say that after 2 decades of war, the hour has come to at least try for peace. Back in 2013, years before he sought the Republican nomination for president, he suggested that we should leave Afghanistan immediately. I lift up our president in prayer, and I ask God to give him strength and to guide his thoughts and actions. And I also pray that our great nation will continue to be blessed by God, the nation for which so many have valiantly fought and died. Is it time to get out of Afghanistan and bring our troops home? From the words of one of your own who started up this organization, Representative Tyler Lindholm, how much blood do we need to spill? How many lives do we need to ruin before we say enough? Shortly after taking office as Idaho's first female lieutenant governor, a young Marine came into my office and he shared his experience of serving in Afghanistan. He shared difficult memories of trying to find the IED explosive bombs that were planted everywhere. And when they would find the bombs and find the soldiers, the Taliban members that had planted the bombs, they would hold them as long as they can, as long as the rules of engagement would allow. And then they would have to turn them back to go out and make more bombs and kill more American soldiers. And then the Taliban started using children to plant these bombs. And unfortunately, Some of them died as a result of that action. He shared with me how working alongside and being required to work alongside the Afghan police commanders, who, as part of their culture, were they felt it was their right to own young boys as young as 8, and they would forcibly sodomize and rape them. And unfortunately, for some of our soldiers, they are the ones that paid the ultimate price, because when those young boys took the revenge, they viewed our soldiers as being complicit with that. As I listened to this young Marine, the more he talked, the more I could tell he was struggling and having a hard time sharing these experiences with me. I'm a mother. I have a son that's the same age of this young man, and so I couldn't help but reach out and put my hand on him to try to comfort him. And of course, he brought a tear to my eye. Ben, I'm so thankful that God has caused our paths to cross. And I want you to continue to tell your story, because we need to hear. Be strong, and we need to hear your story and the story of so many other of our soldiers. The Gold Star is a symbol of pride in the service of lost loved ones, but I struggle knowing the right words to say to Idaho's Gold Star moms. No matter whether if I'm with Anna doing a radio interview in Rupert, Idaho, who lost her son in a helicopter accident in Afghanistan, whether it's delivering flowers to a family at a Meridian football game, a soldier that was lost stepping out of the helicopter, or standing next side Rebecca in Pocatello at a recent veterans service whose son came home and committed suicide. There are too many of these Gold Star moms in our country. I believe it is time to get out of Afghanistan and bring our troops home. And beyond that, I believe that we must stop engaging in undeclared wars and attempting to police the world. We do not have the funds for such campaigns, and we should not be sacrificing American lives by intervening in the affairs and conflicts of other nations. Congress needs to do their job by ending these undeclared wars and allowing our deployed men and women to return to their homes. In his book, Freedom Under Siege, former Congressman Ron Paul wrote, "Carelessly entering into conflicts jeopardizes our liberty. It does not protect it. Intervention abroad causes us to neglect our obligations at home. The moral and constitutional obligations of our representatives in Washington are to protect our liberty, not coddle the world, and precipitate no-win wars." I support our troops. I support their commitment and their heroism. What I cannot support are unconstitutional, undeclared wars that force our troops to fight and die in foreign lands. Congress has a duty and an obligation to decide when war is necessary and when it is not. To abdicate this vital responsibility to the executive branch is dereliction of duty on the part of Congress. The American people are tired of the death and destruction of war. The American taxpayers have been stretched to the breaking point. The national debt is at a record high of more than $23 trillion. Congress has refused to declare war or to exercise responsible oversight over the use of the military. Perhaps a better use of our taxpayers, our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, would be to properly fund the VA for mental health services and substance use programs for our veterans. Give our military a mission and they will go, execute orders, fight and win, define victory, and then let them come home. And once that victory has been achieved, do not ask our fighting men and women to be the world's policemen or nation builders. Let them win and bring our troops home. It is time for these failures to be rectified. It is time to bring our troops home. God bless you, and God bless America.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for your speech and your words. I think it means as much to me as it does to everybody in this room. We can all agree that Lieutenant Governor speaks passionately about this. It is my honor now to introduce a man who's become a hero of mine, someone that I have studied quite a bit in the past months. He is a 10-time deployed Special Forces commander to Afghanistan. He's one of the original 12 horse, or the original horse soldiers in Afghanistan. 12 Strong was the movie that was made about the horse soldiers. And it is my honor and distinct pleasure to introduce General Don Bolduc.
Oh, no, please sit down. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, let's see if this comes up. Yes, it does. Well, thank you all very, very much. Dan, thank you for inviting me here. It's been a pleasure. I haven't been able to shake everybody's hand and meet everybody. I'm sorry, but I can't stand behind a podium. I'm too short. I'll try to take the mic. All right, take the mic. Okay, taking the mic, Victor. All right, thanks. I have the mic. All right. So, where was I? Oh yeah, thanking everybody. I hadn't had time to shake everybody's hand, but I'll get around to it between the remainder of this evening and tomorrow. I have the honor of being a keynote speaker tomorrow, where I will talk to you about Afghanistan. And I've already given Dan a kind of a prelude to what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. But tonight I wanted to share some other thoughts, not only about Afghanistan, but about other things that impact us all in here. I would be remiss if I didn't compliment this wonderful organization here that has provided this space for us, right? I mean, unbelievable, right? Absolutely gorgeous. And I think that there's kind of a special irony there about our Indians and our history and that connection that we all have to our past and the present and the future. So I think this is a pretty decent place for this to occur, and I'm honored to be here. So you see this dog roaming around. Please feel free to pat him. I know it says do not pet on the side. His name is Victor. Victor's my service dog. I've had Victor now for about 20 months. He was trained for 18 months. I took 2 weeks to pair with him. Victor has been provided to me because I suffer from post-traumatic stress. Traumatic brain injury. I had pain management issues which have been taken care of. Sleep disorder. And I am a huge proponent for neurotoxicity, which is something that's been really affecting our service members, right? Particularly the 4 different types of malaria medication that they've been cramming down our throats for a long time. It's created some serious problems for us. And we haven't really grappled with the root causes of these things, and that's why in 2018, across all our services, to include the reserves and National Guard, we had 541 suicides in 2018. Right? That's a lot. That's wrong. And we got to do something about it. That's a battalion's worth of people, right? When you look at our veteran community, you look at that community and you see 20 to 22 a day, but that's only the reporting of 21 states. 21 states, right? Yeah. And so where's the rest of the reporting? And what is really the size of the problem? And so, ma'am, thank you for your comments, because the VA, not only does it need to be funded properly, if it's not already funded properly, but it needs to be reorganized so that it actually does its job, right? That's a huge thing. And That's a mission of mine. It's been a mission of mine and my wife's for the last 2 years that we've been retired. We've been working it hard in New Hampshire, New England, and across the country. It's huge. It's a huge problem. And so I've been advocating for that for a long time. I was the only active duty general officer, and I believe I am still the only active duty general officer to come forward on active duty and talk about my struggles with post-traumatic stress, TBI, pain management, sleep disorder, and how that negatively affected my personal and professional life, right? My wife noticed in 2007 and 2008 that I was a different person and I was acting differently. It's not normal to have 10 rotations to Afghanistan, right? But I felt more comfortable in combat than I did at home. And that's kind of sad, right? I felt as if I was a burden to my family. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have any suicide ideations or anything like that, but I would put myself in the most dangerous situations that I could find in Afghanistan, and if I didn't come home, that would have been okay with me, right? And so that kind of mindset is kind of mindset that we have to protect our service members for. So more importantly than these endless wars that we need, obviously, to get control of and get accountability back in Congress, as Lieutenant Governor talked about, right? If we're going to do these wars for 18, 19 years, we have an equally important responsibility to take care of our service members and family members when they come home. And that's what we're missing. And we got to get that right as well. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways. In 2013, my wife drew a line in the sand. And the reason I'm telling you this story is you have to know the effects of what happens to us when we go to combat. You know, she drew a line in the sand. And she said, hey, you got to get some help. And we can't take it. I can't take it. The kids can't take it. The dog and the cat can't take it. You need to get some help. And I agreed to. I was newly promoted general officer in 2013. Brand spanking new, right? And I was afraid for my career, right? I lacked moral courage, right? So I figured out a way to go do it in Longstool Regional Medical Center under the radar. And I was properly diagnosed for post-traumatic stress, TBI, pain management. I've had both my hips replaced due to blast injuries, 3 discs in my neck replaced due to a helicopter crash. I have a sleep disorder where I can't breathe at night. It happens about 9 times a night, according to my little test. And that's why I have Victor, because Victor has been trained to wake me up when I stop breathing, right? Which was a job that fell to my wife when I was home. And she didn't sleep, right? And I got a CPAP machine, and I hate that thing. Yeah, I hate it. So I got Victor, and I love him. And he gets up on the bed, and he's a great spooner. He gets right in there. Takes just a minimum part of the bed. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he just monitors me. And if I need to be woken up, he wakes me up. If I don't, I don't know what he does, but he's great. And this has allowed me to make an observation of my wife that I didn't really recognize for over 30 years. And that is, she snores. Right? Now, she says it's a hum. I've recorded it. It's a snore, but it is a nice snore, right? Anyways, these things our service members suffer from. And it's really easy to give them the care for their mental and moral injury, their physical injury, and their spiritual health. That triangle is hugely important to our success, right? And none of those legs can be weak. And right now, we're taking better care of our equipment in the military than we are our people. I tell you what, if I had a piece of equipment in the motor pool go down below 90% readiness rate, there would be an automatically generated report that would go to the highest levels of the Pentagon. And then the calls would come down. If I have a soldier that's operating or a service member that's operating at 60%, there's no report. None. Zippo. And when they're dependent on alcohol and drugs because we got them hooked on Oxycontin and opioids for their pain management, and then we took it away from them, we discipline them and we kick them out. And because they get kicked out, then they can't get any help from the VA because it was other than honorable discharge, right? So that's wrong too. So after 2 years of receiving treatment, I took command of Special Operations Command Africa, which was an honor, my division level command. And I said to myself, enough's enough. I have to do the right thing. Because as a general officer, if I can't take care of myself, I have no business taking care of anybody else. And if I can't stand up for my people and put a program together that's going to benefit them, then guess what? I'm no good to them either. I'm just another establishment guy, marking time, waiting for my next smart star, and moving through the system, right? You know what I mean? And that's wrong. So I came forward, talked to the members of my command, went against DOD policy. DOD policy requires anybody that is diagnosed with post-traumatic stress to be put on non-deployable orders, removed from their job. And I don't know where they put them, but they're gone. And that's bad. Bad for the organization and bad for the service member and bad for their family. You're taking them away from what they love. You're stigmatizing them in a way that only leads to bad things. So I promised them, you're not going to lose your clearance, you're not going to come off your team, you're not going to lose your job. Right? But I want you to go through this 3-day program, and we're going to cycle you through without interfering with our deployments and our readiness. And we're going to come up with a flexible plan so that you can still deploy. I used to Skype from Niger when I was out with my guys. Niger, Arlet, Niger. Look it up. Google it. It's right there. It's not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there. You know what I mean? It's pretty damn close. It's right there. So, anyways, I'm Skyping with my therapist, right, back in Launchstool, right? And then when I was available and back, I would go see him, right? So, we need to be more flexible and adaptable, and we can do this without cutting into the mission, because that's what the military worries about, right? They also worry that if you're going to get therapy, that it's going to take away your lethality, right? You're no longer going to be the warrior killer, right? And that's completely wrong, right? You're actually more resilient, you're more ready, you're better, you're more functional. We have less divorces, we have less drug and alcohol problems, we have less sexual harassment. We proved it over a 26-month period. We did the command climate survey before and after. So before, we had problems. And we couldn't understand. We're sending these guys downrange for 6 months, right? And they're getting in trouble with drugs and alcohol. Why? They're special operators. They're special forces, Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Operations, Marine Special Operations. What is going on? What are we doing? Right? Indiscipline, boom, you're out. Well, I learned, no. It's because we're not taking care of them. They're self-medicating, right? Because of one deployment after another. You talk about being in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria with no policy and no strategy and no accountability in Congress that makes sense. Let's talk about 28 countries in Africa doing the same thing with less resources, right? Nobody even talks about that, right? Because it's completely missed, but we're doing the same thing except under different authorities, and it's not Department of Defense led, it's Department of State led, right? But we're still taking on Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, ISIS Somalia, ISIS West Africa, Boko Haram, right? It's unbelievable, okay? Over and over and over again. I had a sergeant first class, weapons sergeant, who killed himself in Kenya. And he killed himself in Kenya the day before he was supposed to rotate home. And why did he do that? I understand it. because the thought of going home was more troubling to him than he could handle. Because he felt more comfortable deployed than he did going home to his family. And it's not because he didn't love his family, it's because he wasn't given the tools, the therapy, the coping mechanism to take what his brain reordered, post-traumatic stress, that's all it is. Your brain reorders itself when you go to a combat zone so that you can live more than one day in combat, right? But the more times you do it, the more permanent effect it has. And the less out of place you feel when you come home if you're not taken care of, right? And then you have the regrets. You have survivor regret, right? Why him or her and not me, right? And it's huge. So we put this program together. As a result of putting the program together, we saved a lot of lives. We helped a lot of people. But it wasn't a popular program. And I received a phone call from the people above me. And they said, hey, Bolduc, this isn't going to bode well for you. And I said, well, I'm not doing it for Don Bolduc. I'm doing it for the men and women who I have a responsibility to help. And we need to help them. We're putting them in these positions, and we're not helping them. And that's why we have the problems that we have. It's not because of indiscipline. It's because we're not taking care of them like we do a piece of equipment. I tell you what, in Africa, I can get a replacement part for a Predator in less than 10 hours. I can't get a guy out or a gal out that's sick for 72 to 96 hours. Right? Come on. There's something wrong there. Right? Something inherently wrong with that. Not only is Congress not doing their job when it comes to these endless wars, but they're not doing their job and the responsibility when it comes to taking care of the people that they're putting in the positions and their families. And that needs to change. I put this up here. I couldn't travel with it because I'm always afraid that the glass cases here will break. But I carry that with me everywhere I go. And anyone that knows me and anyone that's with me a lot, like Josh McKelvin, knows that I carry it with me all the time. It's in my truck, right? And this is a memorial that I put together for the men and women that I've served with in Afghanistan and Africa, right? And that memorial has become my source of strength, my why I spoke out on active duty, and why I continue to speak out as a retired service member against what I see are the leadership errors of the military and our civilian senior men and women. And I do that because I promised these people that I would. Now, that little pedestal there, when I came back from my first rotation in Afghanistan in 2002, had 3 names on it. I didn't bring 3 people home, right, on our team. After my 6th and 7th rotation, I had 16 names on that. After my 10th rotation and 4 years in Africa, 72 dog tags sit in there. 72 men and women that I didn't bring home, that are no longer with their families. And in the special operations community, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of people anyway. Right? And they would go ahead and do it again tomorrow. That's not the issue. Our men and women will do anything we ask them to do, and they'll do it magnificently. They will. It's incumbent upon us, and I include myself in that. I was a general. I failed them. I admit my failures, and I work every single day to ensure that their sacrifice and the sacrifices of their family is honored, and it's recognized, and it's not lost. I guess they didn't like me touching the screen. That's huge for me. That's my why. And I will continue to do it until the end. It's that important. And that's why organizations like this are hugely important. And that's why I agreed to come and talk in one phone call with Dan. Right? That has become my strength. That is what makes me do everything that I do every single day. And I think that is hugely important, and we all need to find that. And it's clear to me that people in this room have found it. And I only hope that this grows, right? Because it's huge. People need to be held accountable. We're not against the military. We're not against using the military. But it must be done correctly, under a policy that drives national interests and objectives, under a strategy that employs the operational approach that will allow our tactical units and the men and women who serve in them to win and then come home. And do it on a timeline that isn't forever. Right? So tomorrow, I'm going to talk about Afghanistan. And I'm going to talk about 2001 to 2 and my thoughts on why we won it in June of 2002 and why we should have come home. And then the problems from 2002 to 2005. And Iraq fits into that prominently. And then I'm going to talk about 2005 to 2010. And then I'm going to talk about 2010 to the middle of 13, and then 14 to today. Now, the difference is I wasn't there for 14 till now. But I'm going to show you why 14 now is an epic failure. And what I'm going to tell you, a lot of people don't know because they weren't there. And I fought hard against it. That's why I got sent to Africa. The other day, Veterans Day, I was talking to a group, and a Coast Guard guy was like, hey, you know, this is a picture of Alaska, of one of the weather stations that was there from 1947 to 2010, and it had been replaced now by satellite, so they don't need it. And he said, yeah, that's a real remote area, and it wasn't the best of assignments. And I remember my first sergeant, when I was a squad leader, a sergeant in the 82nd, always threatened us squad leaders. He goes, Bolduc, you screw this up, and I'm sending you to the weather station in Alaska. I finally figured out the other day what he was talking about, right? I go, whoo, I'm glad I didn't end up there, right? Because it didn't look good. But anyways, I will take you through that journey, my journey, right? It's my journey from my perspective. I'm not a historian. I'm not a big brain. I don't work for a think tank. I'm a state college graduate, right? I mean, that's it. I'm just a regular old guy. But I have observations, right? And I have experiences. And I have an opinion. And I deliver it because I shared it while I was on active duty. So I feel I have earned that right because I didn't hide from the brass when I was on active duty, and I'm not hiding from them now, right? So I'd like to show you a quick clip that's set to music. The time frame is 2005 to 7. My battalion deployed twice during that time frame, 9 months each time with a short break in the middle. It was a critical time because it was the resurge of the Taliban in southern Afghanistan in the traditional Panjwai district. We conducted two major operations, Operation Medusa and Operation Bazooka. And both those operations were designed to get the Taliban out of Panjwai because they were threatening the security of Kandahar City and the Helmand Province, right? And so it was a bad time. And I will tell you that at one point in time on September 11th, we didn't even plan this, but it was September 11th, 2006, I'm on top of a mountain looking down in the Panjwai Valley while our guys are maneuvering down there against thousands of Taliban. Not one or two, not a handful, but thousands. Nobody could believe it. I'm glad we took pictures. Nobody wanted to believe it. That's the problem. But it was unbelievable. Can you imagine? September 11th, 2001. Now it's 2006. And the force is bigger and more lethal on the ground, meaning the Taliban. Okay? And this is some of the things I'm going to point out. But what you're going to see is our guys went in there and did something phenomenal. They went in there and did combat operations through with and by our partners, to include the locals all the way up to the Afghan police and military. But then they started setting in the key things for governance and development, and working with the governor of Kandahar, Asadullah. And it's just a photo thing just to show you there's got to be some fighting, but then there's got to be, more importantly, some development, right? And some governance building. And you have to do that. You have to meet. And you're going to see some pictures, and I'll tell you when the picture comes up, of us sitting down at a shura with the Taliban, figuring out how they're going to live together, right? It can be done if the conditions are set. Those conditions don't exist today, but they did then. And we blew it. And we blew it again. Now we really blew it. And what did they say we're going to do? Muddle through. I think it's a bad idea. I've never heard muddle through. I mean, I'm not a doctrine guy, but I didn't read muddle through in any doctrine I've read. So I guess, I don't know. So give me a second here. I'm going to pull this up, best of my ability. And I'm just hoping I can get the music to work. All right, here we go. Now, give me a second. Oop, here we go. Now, we were Task Force 31. Pressure, pursue, punish was our motto. Where's the volume? Can barely hear the music. Can you barely hear that? It was playing fine earlier. Huh? Can't hear it. All right, I know there's a volume button here.
I'm hearing Ted Nugent.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start it over. Sorry. Hey, here we go. Come on, Don. You can do it. Right, Victor? All right, here we go. Boom. All right. As soon as this other thing pops up. Here we go. Open. We had the Canadians, we had the British, we had the Americans, we had the Afghans, we had the local populace. This was the first Canadian heavy drop since the Korean War. That was huge for them. Look at those little babies. The governor and the commanding general, General Van Loon. You look around, there are no American contractors, no one doing the work here. It's all Afghans, all money going to Afghans. We established radio stations, TV stations. They ran them. We didn't run them. When you started working on their dental stuff, our medics were miracle workers. This guy was suffering for a long time. I was in that medical area. This is these are all Taliban, right here. Tell me you can't work with them. You can work with them. You just got to set conditions. This is Afghan local police. Think about it. Local police. Police from the communities. Not police from Kabul coming down to police people in Kandahar City. That doesn't make any sense. They don't even speak the same dialect. These checkpoints for them were critical. They did it. They filled the HESCOs. We didn't fill the HESCOs. But anyways, that was Task Force 31. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Task Force 31. I love them. I love this song too, so. We can do a little jig. Thank you all very much, and God bless you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think everyone in here that has served understands the courage it takes to stand up as a veteran and oppose something that is not a popular position. But it's good for us to know as veterans that there is a leader, there's a general grade officer who supports us as veterans, who supports the men who served under him, and I would follow this man into combat any day. So thank you, General.
You're welcome.
So Bob Cohen directed a movie called An Endless War, Getting Out of Afghanistan. It's an hour-long documentary. We were going to show it tonight. Each of you got it.